It's yeah, thank you ever so much, really. I think I've been given 5 minutes, so what I thought I would do is probably just outline as a college what we're seeing in the sector at the moment, and also how we're responding to that, and just give a bit of insight into what our students study as well. And if I whip through it, there may be an opportunity for some questions, or probably maybe to leave that to the end as well. But yeah, so it's great for the college to be able to sponsor this morning as well, and actually fantastic to share it with yourself, Michael, as well. And I know you're a huge advocate for the further education sector, and our students benefit hugely from visiting Lympstone Manor each year. So our students in our training kitchen at the Quantock restaurant, and I think those types of opportunities, I think, really do play into the maximum of it's easier to be what you can see, and it is truly inspirational when our students come back, and our staff, for visiting such settings, and you know, it gives them the motivation to actually want to progress into the career. And we time it just at that moment in time when the students may be slightly flagging and need to get their high grades, and then we come back from there and they think, well, and then they just fly, because that's the that's what they see, and that's what they want to aspire to. So I know I've only got a short couple of minutes to go. So really, what's trying to do here really is just to outline a couple of things that we're seeing, and probably no surprises that you know, we're seeing a huge demand at the moment from employers regarding for apprentices and apprenticeships, to the point it's probably, you know, what the employers demand is outstripping applicants, and that's not only just across this sector, but all sectors at this moment in time. Just to give you a bit of insight, we've got over 3,000 apprentices across the college, across all sectors. Probably 10% of those account for hospitality, catering, agriculture, horticulture, butchery, food production sectors, and we probably got another 100 jobs looking to be filled with applicants at this moment in time as well. So we can see it's really buoyant, and for some probably, you know, obvious reasons, where I think we would, you know, a conversation prior to starting the meeting, that you know, various factors that are really really impinging on people being able to get either part-time staff or full-time staff across there. What we are seeing really encouragingly is our post-16 school leaver provision really flourishing as well, within catering and hospitality, and within Adam's team we've developed the new level 3 provision and pathway for professional cookery, and that really is a great pathway for students to progress into either an apprenticeship or into other full-time work there as well. So across the college, including our students that work in the training kitchen at the Quantock restaurant, we also have the Red Apron kitchen, which is for our foundation studies students. So we've got about 100 students, 16 to 18, that are studying that type of provision there. What is pre-pandemic, and hope as things start to settle down a little bit, he says, as the rates spike up currently, are supported internships for our foundation studies. We've done a piece of work with EDF, and working on the Hinkley Point C project, and students have found full-time work in the food and drink sectors, that and the supply chain regarding that that construction there, and that's worked really, but life-changing, I would say, for some of our foundation study students for there as well. The other bit really, obviously, is that skilled workforce focus, and I think something that I'm really keen to really explore and actually, you know, set up and develop really is a sector skills work-based academy that can really start to address some of the skills shortage across the sector, and we've done similar skill-based work-based academies in other sectors, for an example with Morrison's. And so the college's role within that really is advertising the jobs that employers have got, and then providing key initial diagnostic assessments, career guidance, literacy and numeracy support, interview strategy, CV writing, that will then link directly into the employers. So you're able then to funnel the right applicants into the right jobs with the right employers from there. This slide really is nothing more than just to show that some of the curriculum that the students study. Just to give a bit of an insight what's happening in the education sector post 16 outside of schools. You may or may not be aware of the FE skills white paper that really signals a step change for colleges is part of that post-COVID recovery, and this paper really details the role post-16 education plays within that, and the key part of that is, so you may have heard of the T levels. So these are level 3, so it's A-level equivalents, and a key offer for that T level is a 45-day placement. So students can be really immersed with an employer, up to 2 employers across their 2-year program, and giving them a real detailed insight into the world of work there as well. So that's quite an exciting offer. These are being phased in. So for hospitality, catering is the 2023 from there. Just without wanting to go right into huge detail with this, it just shows how post-16 education is changing. On there, you've got the traditional A-level route that will lead directly into higher education. Alongside there, you've got the traditional what they call advanced general qualifications. They're your BTECs qualifications that people are probably familiar with, and the T level is across some of these sectors will be replacing some of those BTEC equivalents from there, and that T level can lead into apprenticeships, or it can take you into higher education there as well. So it's just to give you a bit of an oversight of what is happening for the post-16 education, really. And it's the part of the Department of Education's really clear aim to try and have a bit of more coherent progression routes for students. I think primarily based on the belief that there's too many similar qualifications across the different levels there. This is part of a consultation, and I think what will probably happen with what tends to happen with a new Minister for Education, it all gets put on pause. But from there, but hospitality and catering are really looking to develop from 2023. So I think really I'm just going to finish there, but my Adam wouldn't forgive me, nor would my manager of the Quantrop restaurant, if I didn't put a slide up that shows the restaurant and the training kitchen on there. But I think I think from the college's point of view, I think it's really keen to be working with employers to address that skill shortage, and I think one of those key things is perhaps exploring the benefits of a sector skills work-based academy that can help support you know, the upskilling and the career changes, but also those people that are looking to gain employment within the sector there as well. Okay, I'm going to stop there because I know you only gave me 5 minutes, Jen, so I'll stop. We can and I know I'll pass back to you, and then
thank you. Thank you very much. Do you want to unshare your screen?
Yeah.
Brilliant. Thank you ever so much. That was wonderful. I'm sure we'll have some questions for you at the end. Really delighted to have Michael Caines MBE with us today. And without much more delay, I'd like to pass straight over to Michael, if that's okay.
Thank you. And thanks for the introduction, and also to Jason for the insight into what the college is doing. It's great to see a very proactive approach. Clearly the industry is, as with many sectors, is struggling with route to employment. So thank you for that, very insightful. Perhaps we can catch up at another time, see if we can work together on something. Just turning to my own presentation, I was asked to talk about how do you get through the last 18 months, and I think really the best way to frame that is to go back to 2017 when we opened up Lympstone Manor. You know, it's remarkable to think that our business is only 4.5 years old, and 3.5 of those years has been through a pandemic. And of course, as with every business in its infancy, you know, how do you survive and thrive perhaps through adversity. And so what I want to do is talk a little bit about that. But for those of you that don't know Livingston Manor, I thought it would be a good idea to show you our video, No Reason, Just Passion, which is a little bit of a hashtag that I use. So hopefully it's you with the playing of the video, and then I'll talk from there. Thank you.
Yeah, I'm just going to share my screen.
Thank you.
Oh, second. Perfect. Hope you can see that screen okay?
Yeah, fantastic.
The most priceless thing in life, the one thing you can never value, is creativity. The only thing you're limited by is your own imagination. I wanted to create something which really encapsulated my imagination in its full and outstanding country house hotel for the 21st century. For me, this is the realization of my dream. I want this place to make people feel something, you know, to be moved by it. The landscape and the whole sense of place is very much part of the emotion of staying at Livingston Manor. And that's why I wanted to use that as an inspiration for the interiors and the bedrooms. All of the bedrooms are named after birds of the estuary, and the colours from the birds then are used to decorate our rooms. There's not one room that looks or feels the same in terms of its interior finish. You're going to get that luxury feeling, amazing, incredible feeling throughout the house, regardless of where you choose to stay. The kitchen is at the very heart of everything we do and has a connection to the land and sea, of course. Each of the three dining rooms have their own characteristics and charm, but at the same time offer intimacy as well as luxury. We have a team that are all about creating an unpretentious environment for the customer to feel relaxed but also pampered, and I think that's important. Perfection is something you strive for and never reach, in my opinion. I want this to be the new benchmark within hospitality, not just in the UK but worldwide. Livingston Manor has been in my head for so long, and it's finally a relief to be able to show it to everybody as a finished product. It's captured my heart, and now it's time for it to capture others. So we say to people, come and experience the exceptional.
Thank you. So, I mean, obviously, there we go. I mean, full of optimism and full of hope. We started well. We had a good couple of years, and as we know, along came the pandemic, and I think we kind of felt that bizarrely we were watching events from afar. We were seeing things unfold in China, and I guess we would kind of think it wouldn't affect us in the same way. I think most of us thought, oh, this is their problem, not ours, and we were sort of a little bit caught way short, and as things got worse, we could all kind of see that there were sort of conflicting advice, and the first bit of advice that really didn't help the hospitality industry was to stay away from restaurants and don't go. That message was really difficult because it left the industry somewhat exposed. Lots of businesses were having cancellations, and of course we were full of staff, and we just simply weren't ready or had no support for the devastating effect that would have. Lots of the industry made staff redundant. I was very lucky that I had an insider into the government's COBRA meeting. He told me that a package was on its way, And I thought that it was wise to wait and have a provision to wait for the announcement from Rishi Sunak to see what would happen. And so we didn't make any moves in redundancy, but we were planning on drastically reducing our staffing in March as we were going through this sort of awakening of this nightmare that was unfolding. As we know, the announcement was made, and immediately, literally the next day or after service that night, on the 20th of March, the hotel closed, and it remained closed for several months, not opening until the 4th of July. Immediately, that sent the entire sector into a massive shockwave, as it did the entire economy. And given the context of what the reasoning and rationality behind it was, that wasn't the issue. The fact is, obviously, like a lot of businesses, you're left wondering how you can then deal with it. So the first thing was to talk to the bank and sort out what our cash flow position was. Now, historically, any new business is going to be watching its cash flow. And of course, in our sector, reserves is something that we don't really see a lot of. We see enough to get you through, 4 or 5 months of winter, and then you're back open. So it massively affected the sector in terms of its cash flow. A lot of businesses were in a very difficult position. So first thing we did is have a chat with the bank. The bank suggested that we plan around a 6-month closure, which we did. So we redid our finance on a 6-month closure. We were losing 110,000 a month just to stay open. We didn't, obviously, first of all, we didn't get rid of any staff. The first thing was to see who qualified for furlough. We recognise that it's taken huge effort to recruit staff in March ready for the season. So just think, we're at the lowest point in our cash flow need, or shall we, highest point in our need, and we had just started to ramp up our recruitment ready for the season, April, May, June, July. So we had this sort of perfect storm of critical mass that we had to deal with. Part of that was dealt with the furlough scheme, which is a very good scheme indeed, and helped safeguard businesses. The other part of it was the reality that we had staff that were marooned in the UK, couldn't travel home, and also had just started. So we decided that we would keep those staff on at 80% of their salary and give them jobs around the hotel. It was a nightmare. I mean, obviously, we applied for every grant. We put in place a civils loan. We also had already agreed a 900,000 loan with the bank to do some infrastructure work, to put new shepherd's huts in. The bank said carry on with those works. They analysed the market and said there's 3 types of businesses: those that won't survive because they're not viable, those that are at the end of their business cycle, people would decide to retire or retire their businesses, and the other types of the businesses like ours that is clearly a business that is going to survive and and carry on. But nevertheless, we weren't sure about anything about the future other than the fact that we knew that we had to survive the immediacy of the pandemic. So we got through those months with a fixation of listening to the advice. Obviously, have a small group, a cohort of staff that worked in the hotel. We had to keep the grounds going, the vineyard going, and the infrastructure work that we'd already planned. And also we made the most of the grants, obviously, that were there. We also worked out what we needed in terms of a plan to reopen with our sales team, staying in situ, selling our product, with an expected date of reopening in June. So we had always thought that the plan or the roadmap would get us to June. So we bravely said that we'd open in June, which meant to say that we were able to continue to take reservations, but more importantly, have the preparation in our team and within our culture of our business to have a date to which we were fixed to, which meant to say that we were starting to gear up towards that date, or whatever date was going to be announced at the time by the government. It was a long closure in extremely wonderful weather. That particular summer was great. In fact, the only thing that might come out of 2020 that was good will be the wine that we actually produced that year. But that was a pretty lonely existence of seeing a hotel that was empty, going through COVID-19 and seeing the effects it had on our community and our loved ones. So I think we always must remember that whatever we've been through pales into insignificance when you look at the effect it had on people's lives and lost ones. But once the government gave this roadmap to reopening, we were able to fix on a reopening date of the 4th of July, which, but before that, obviously, we were able to as I say, activate our plan of opening. Reopening was really difficult because staff naturally were very, very nervous about coming back. Clearly, we had to put in place stringent COVID restrictions, which limited our business. But nevertheless, because we're a country house, we have plenty of space. It didn't impact too much. There were some positives that came out of the reopening in terms of the cut on VAT. That was a welcome relief, if you like, which we didn't pass on to the customer. We kept as a business to profit from the and use it as a mechanism to make up ground. So we didn't pass that on. We kept our prices that we advertised and everybody booked up on. Once the announcement from the government was made, the phones went absolutely crazy and our business rocketed into life. We were incredibly busy, 90, 100%, 97, 100% occupancy all the way through June, July, August, September and October. And even in November, we were sat on 80% occupancy until the announcement was made that we had to close, which is pretty predictable, but nevertheless disappointing and devastating to have to close yet again. And then, of course, we reopened in December with the idea that we'd have a Christmas and a guarantee of a great Christmas and New Year. And boy, if only. But unfortunately, both Christmas and New Year's got cancelled. And I think in reflection, during that time, we'd benefit from the closure. We picked up a restaurant in Cornwall. We'd also bought a restaurant at the beginning of the year. So when we reopened in the summer last year, we opened up, 2 businesses. And then our delayed project in Exmouth was affected by COVID-19. So that had to be delayed as well. So clearly we're managing multiple businesses. And then amongst that closure period, we were able to pick up a restaurant from Rick Stein's in Cornwall in a place called Porthleven. So we benefited from the situation and advanced our business interests. But of course, we opened up in September or that business with great hope and only to be closed in November. And really, we saw the season sort of come to an abrupt end because in Cornwall in particular, a lot of businesses didn't bother reopening in December and stayed closed. And in reflection, perhaps we should have. But Livingston Manor nevertheless was busy through December with great bookings in place for Christmas and New Year. So that was a shame. But at the end of the day, despite revenue being down in terms of overall turnover, we managed to outperform our EBITDA number at the end of 2020, which is quite extraordinary given the circumstance. And if we hadn't closed in November, we would have completely smashed it. And that's partly because of obviously the cut in VAT, but also the fact that we had this pent up demand with people not being able to travel. The UK tourist industry is worth outbound to this UK. So outbound tourism from the UK is worth about £50 billion. So all of a sudden, we had that expenditure being spent with destination Cornwall and Devon being one of the busiest. And so therefore we saw huge amount of people come to the southwest, which actually also caused another problem in terms of spreading the disease. But that is just reality, as we know, of what happened. Now, obviously, we closed for a month in November, reopened, and then we had the news that we had to close again. And that was really difficult. Despite having gained a huge amount of cash and cash flow, the business is a better position. But we were then in for a very, very long closure period from January all the way through to May the 17th. We were able to open up our business on the 12th of April, and that was because we had installed those shepherd's huts that started to kick in. So that was very, very fortuitous, but it was mere chicken feed. In reality, it was a drop in the ocean in terms of its contribution, and we were still losing money despite that. But what it enabled us to do is to get the hotel back up and running, deal with some of the things like room service offer. We changed the offer last year in terms of looking at offering the customer room service options, and of course we didn't do takeaway. We decided that wasn't really something worth doing, because actually that would have caused the amount of money when we worked it out, even if we were very, very busy, the amount of cash that would have generated would have probably broke even, wouldn't have really made a big difference in terms of the losses. So as a result, we just felt that it wasn't worth it. But what it enabled us to do was plan for what we wanted to achieve in 2020 to 2021, my apologies, through 2020. And then, of course, the closure of 2020 gave us a huge amount of time to think. But this time we'd learned the lessons from the year before. We knew that the VAT cut was going to be continued into October and then reduced to 12%. We knew that there was some grants still on offer, and we also knew that we'd already put in place 6-month strategy for closure, so we had plenty of cash in the bank. So what we wanted to do in March was we restructure our financial position, package up all our loans. So the civil loan was about 160,000, and that on top of our 90,000, and that on top of the existing loan that we had for Livingston Manor was packaged up and put over 20 years. We were able to also continue some infrastructure plans. We put the go ahead with a pool project, because we felt that if we were going to reopen in May, as we did, that we would be very, very busy again, and that we would outperform our budget, and chances are that we'd also be in a very strong cash position. So what we wanted to do is make the most of that. So when we finally did open up, again, we saw bookings absolutely go through the wall. 97 to 100% occupancy through July. We had a record-breaking month, room rates going through the roof, achieving and selling at rack rate. So average daily rates for rooms were higher, the overall yield was better, but there was a consequence, and the consequence was, we're living in a post-Brexit reality. A lot of staff have gone home. A lot of staff had gone home during that January to May closure, and also we were very, very busy. Everyone was busy, so we were almost twice as busy as we were before. And everyone was busy, so everybody was looking for staff, pooling staff. We opened up 5 businesses at the same time, and all of them were chronically suffering from the same issues. So despite that, we had to then limit our business from July onwards. So we decided to restrict our lunch trade, focus our attention on resident only, but also in our other restaurants, we had to drop down to a 5-day working week and consolidate the team. And it was really also about talking to our staff and coming together, accepting that there were going to be some long hours. But one of the things we did do is that we took the savings in the staff budget and distributed it as a bonus at the end of June, and also increased our overtime payments, if you like, that were more than just top up. We were able to be more generous to the staff that were holding the fort with a little bit of a bonus system. So we revolutionized the way we looked at our sharing of the profits, because we knew that despite being generous, we were still able to maintain our numbers and outscore them. So we saw a continued outperformance of business through June, July, August, September, even up to this month, October as well. And whilst November is busy, or certainly above budget, we are forecasting a record-breaking turnover year. This will be the busiest year we've ever had, and that's all been consolidated into effectively a much, much shorter year. But also we've recognised too that our business has had to change and adapt. The key factor being the limitation of staffing, and it's crazy to think that we've had to limit our business because of staffing, but that is the reality we're in. But it's also taught us how we can focus our business on where we need it to be and be well profitable, but at the same time support the other factors and try and get some scales of economies, and also deal with some of the challenges. The Michael Caines Academy students have played their part, but obviously they were massively affected by the pandemic as well. So a lot of them don't have any any work experience or real contact with the industry. So their mindset hasn't matured over the last year and a half, and it's only now that they're really getting industry experience and actually classroom experience as well, which is making a difference in what they see, what the industry is, and what the expectation is for them within the industry as well. So I think when we summarize it, this 2021 would be a vintage year. It'll be our best turnover ever. We'll make the most profit ever. Yeah, it's been incredibly challenging because of the backdrop of staffing. And as we go into 2022, we already have seen an 18% wage increase within our sector. And our concept of levelling up will have an impact on inflation in terms of price points, because whilst we're happy to pay more salaries to our staff and try and reduce our working hours and improve conditions, the reality is that those costs will have to be passed on. And we are seeing, of course, as we lead up to Christmas, huge amount of strain in the supply chain and other sectors affected by this shortage, not just in education. And if there's a shortage in education, then it doesn't bode too well for the future. We just simply don't have the numbers in our economy that will make up So what we're expecting to see as we look beyond this 2021 is a thinning out with the market, because there's simply just not enough jobs being filled. So, you know, if you can't open your business in the middle of the countryside because you don't have any staff, then, you know, you'll either restrict that business to open very for 3 or 4 days a week, or you won't open at all. And we're also seeing a lot of people calling an end to their season now at the end of October earlier, and not bothering to trade through the winter. And so I think, you know, I think the furlough scheme ending has certainly helped, and certainly seeing people move around a bit more. We also know that also a lot of people were loyal to their previous employees as they got through the difficult time, and now they're looking to change. And so what we're trying to do is to, as a company, look at next year's, if the going rate for staffing is £9.50, £10 an hour, then we'll factor that in. But there will be, of course, a factor of that. And we only saw yesterday in the news that the food sector was talking about considerable amounts of increase, 15 to 18% inflation on food, which will play out through the sector and also through the pricing structure. And we're already seeing a lot of businesses put up their prices this year in anticipation for that, and the growing costs are being absorbed currently within our business because we set our rates and those rates have been honoured. But clearly, as we go into 2022, we're going to have to increase our rates, and as a result, you know, that will be passed on to the customer. But that's where we are. Despite it being incredibly challenging, there have been plenty of pluses and plenty of opportunities that are coming out of it. Plus, we've grown and learnt as a business, and despite those challenges, I think we're a stronger business. We have now some restructuring to do and some additional opportunities in front of us, but we're in a very strong position to be able to weather future storms. And I guess if you can survive the past, then you can certainly weather many a storm beyond this. But I think the biggest challenge beyond the pandemic, which is still playing its part, and we're already expecting an announcement soon with the reintroduction of some of those social distancing rules and face mask wearing, which we haven't abandoned. We're expecting to be the biggest test will be the effects of Brexit.
Michael, thank you ever so much. That was absolutely wonderful. You answered most of my questions as you went along, which is superb. Thank you very much. Question for you. I know local and keeping local is really important to you, but can you explain to everyone else in the room, you know, why that local supply chain is so important to you and the manor?
Well, we've always believed that part of our identity as a sense of place is this, and also the effects it has on the economy, and also the effects it has on the more sustainable approach for the obviously environment, is to buy local, to reduce food miles, and so that's really been a part of our thing. But we're also blessed that, you know, we're living in the southwest, and the southwest in particular has an incredible larder, you know, and we're pretty much surrounded by sea. We have, you know, Devon is the 3rd largest county. We have our county such as Dorset, Somerset, as you know, which is a very rich farming heritage. And so we should and rightly use the produce that's on our doorstep to define and differentiate what we offer. You know, if you can go to a restaurant and get the same food everywhere, then you're not unique. So part of our uniqueness, if you like, is the fact that we have this USP called Michael Caines the Chef, and this wonderful, outstanding, beautiful hotel and locations that we operate in, but also it's our produce. And we also do that with a very conscious nod towards the environmental offset that brings by local, and it's a more sustainable approach.
Thank you. I'm actually going to open up the room to other people for questions now. So if you'd like to all unmute yourself, unless you've got screaming kids, barking dogs, etc. in the background, feel free to all unmute yourself. Oh, like right on cue. So that's amazing. Like to all unmute yourself and ask questions now.
Hi, Michael. That was really interesting. Thank you. I just got a couple of questions, if I may. Sure. One is, quite a lot of the hotels I've talked to this year have said that their visitor profile has changed in terms of, and so they're having staffing issues because they're dealing with people that they wouldn't normally be dealing with. And so I wondered if that was something that Lympston's come across. And the other was that your staff are kind of, they're all about passion, and that really comes across, and their knowledge of the food and all that kind of stuff. And I wondered if you kind of got any top tips on how you kind of motivate them to get them so that they are because it's so genuine and so authentic, and it obviously comes from kind of Lympstone. So there's kind of two things really. Thank you, and thanks for your talk. It was great.
Thank you. Well, thank you very much, Nell. Well, the first question is guest profiles. Brits abroad are notoriously famous. I love the fact that we talk about British people abroad as expats, but we talk about people who are from other countries in this country as migrants, and it's really interesting. The British people are legendary, and the guest profile has changed massively, because they normally go abroad and click their fingers and expect lots of people to be subservient to them, and they've been quite challenging, but we're also very grateful for them, because I think some of them have fallen back in love with holidaying in the UK, and I think that's important, because we want to have this. We've been very reliant, if you like, of inbound tourism. We know the market of inbound tourism is worth billions of pounds to us, and we also know that our market is dominated by France and Europe, and so France being the largest visitor, and America being the second largest, but America grossing the most spend, with France second. So we know that, but the tourism market that's in the UK has been instrumental in the survival of our sector. And I think what we need to learn from it is the guest needs in Britain have changed from travel. They've also become a trickier customer to deal with higher expectations. And so therefore, if you're going to charge a lot of money, then you need to be, they're also very quick to tell you what they think about things. They say that British people don't complain and we like to queue. Well, to be frank, they are not. They like to tell you what they think, and they're very, very demanding of it. And they think because they're paying a lot of money that all the more reason to feedback, which is fine. Don't get me wrong, but that observation is there, and clearly the profile of the British holiday maker, has been experienced here in the UK, and with it some of the quirky nature of them. And in terms of passion and how we put that passion in our staff, we try and create a culture. One of the things that we were doing before Brexit was to recognise that if we were spending a huge amount of money marketing our business to guests, and we were having a crisis in our staffing, why aren't we spending equal amount of money advertising and marketing our business to our people that we want? And our business is about people. It's about the people we employ. It's also about the people who we, cater for. So what we try to do is change the culture a little bit. Inspiring videos such as the one you saw early is part of our induction process, which is a day that we have that everybody has to undertake before they start, but also try and reach out with that story of, look what I've achieved through, my career. And, ultimately that is something that our staff can do themselves. And if you put yourself amongst like-minded people, we've recognized in the Caines Academy that if you select out the right people through the process of employment, then you end up with like-minded people. But once they're in your business, their expectations are high, a bit like that customer that you're talking about as well. And so what we're realizing is, as people come to you with great expectations, you need to be organized, you need to be structured, and you'll be able to have to deliver. People don't mind working extra, people don't mind being part of a stressed environment, but they need to have their welfare taken care of. You need to give them good facilities. And that's something that we're looking at constantly and reviewing, but also they need good communication. So we have Employee of the Year, we do, for their birthdays, we give them a voucher, £50. We've created this culture where we have retained an element of their gratuities, but we use that for staff welfare, and we use that to improving the facilities of the staff, and also rewarding them as we go along where we can. And I think as long as our team feel that they're being rewarded and they're part of something of a bigger picture, that passion seems to come through and happy staff is happy customers. Ultimately we'll do that. We're not always successful, we don't always get it right, and we don't always retain the staff in the manner we want, and it's been incredibly difficult this year with all the extra sort of pressures we've had. But at the same time, ultimately you've got to persevere and assume that if people come to you, they came to you with aspirations, and if they leave you without doing a decent stint, you have to be you have to understand why. And if you can understand why, then perhaps that makes you a better employer as you go forward.
Thanks, Michael. That's brilliant. Thank you.
Anybody else with a question?
I was going to say, you mentioned the academy briefly. I know a wee bit about it, but I didn't know if you wanted to know a little bit more about the work that you do with Exeter.
Sure. I mean, with my Caines Academy, I think it's been going, I think next year it'll be 10 years. We've had, 16 students. It's excellence in hospitality. So we don't call it a cooking academy, because we know that most people coming into hospitality will come in because they think they want to be the next, perhaps Jamie Oliver, Gordon Ramsay, perhaps not, or Michael Caine, who knows, Lorraine LeBlanc, whatever. They're inspired by some of the people they see on TV and some of the shows. But not all of them are naturally gifted to be chefs. So why we call it is hospitality is because in the VRQ model with City and Guilds, we've got this this ethos, if you like, and this belief that everybody should do front and back of house. Everybody should be immersed within the industry, but more importantly, everybody should have the opportunity to find what they're passionate about. And if that is in the kitchen, but it's a pastry, or in the kitchen and it's in the main kitchen, or is it out front into sommelier or bar or barista work or just front of house, that's fine. If it's baking, whatever it might be. And so what we try and do is we take 40 students and put them through a day where they have to do various tasks, and then the next day they almost have an interview with me, almost like a sort of, well, I don't want to call it the apprentice, but they sit before us, they hand in their task work, we ask them for predetermined questions that they know, and we select what we think will be the right 16 students to work together as one cohort. And you have year 1 and year 2, and then on year 1 I'll go in, and every year I'll go in and I'll cook and demonstrate for the students. So that's in a week's time. We'll also involve them with things like the food festivals and dinners, and obviously those things haven't happened, but they get involved with events that goes on. But also I'll cook with the first year students. We always cook for the graduating second year students, and we give them a syllabus which is much more concise, so they complete that they do a 1 day worth of activities where they go out and they visit farms, they visit producers, they visit the industry, and they have an extended 6 weeks worth of work experience at the end of their term. And so what we do is we shorten the college curriculum into less weeks, so it's more intense, but at the same time it gives them more time at the end of the year to go and do work experience, which is then done with our partners in a predetermined way. And so that's generally what it's been. We've turned out some fantastic students who have all done well and gone on to do great things, and some of them now have got their own businesses as well. So we try and make them a little bit entrepreneurial in their thought process, and I think that's important too. But I think the key is that it's excellence in hospitality rather than just a cooking academy. Thank you.
I believe we have a question from Jason.
Yeah, thank you, Michael. Fantastic speech and talk. Really interesting. It's just at my college, we have something called the BTC Advantage, which is really outside of the qualifications they're studying. It's about supporting personal development, behaviour, attitudes. So as an employer, and I think it's really interesting you were saying as part of your Excellence Academy, developing the entrepreneurial skills as well, and I think that's a takeaway for me. And I don't know whether we do enough of that within our curriculum. But as an employer, what would be some of the key characteristics when you're narrowing that 40 down to 16, and you think what are the tipping points that makes that person one of the 16 rather than actually close but not quite this time?
Effort really is probably, if you look at when you get those kids and you say to them, why do you want to be why do you want to be a part of the academy? And some of them can answer that question and hand you a portfolio of work of things they've done to demonstrate their passion for what they do. And it comes back to that word passion, no reason, just passion. A lot of people get up in the morning and do their job and they don't like it. It's just a means to an end. Other people get up and do the job and they'll go where the money is because they'll earn the maximum amount of money for the minimum amount of input. Hospitality is not a sector where it's just a job. You've got to be passionate about it. And those kids need to be motivated by a passion and a desire to want to cook. And we always say to them, if your kids have been getting competitions and baking cakes and working, have you got a job? Oh yeah, I'm working for it's amazing what effort they give. And so what we want to see is a real genuine passion in why they want to be a part of the college. I mean, nobody who applies ends up not being part of Exeter College. They all get offered a choice, and not all of those people who come in year one are guaranteed to be there in year two if they don't achieve a certain quality of attendance and application of their work. But through selection, you have to be a bit brutal, you know, because ultimately, if you can see a young kid that turns up, they haven't made an effort to put on some nice clothes because it's a proper interview process. They haven't made an effort to answer the questions correctly, and they haven't presented anything. And they're just sort of saying, well, my mum thought it might be a good idea because, or that they're using it because they you know, to get them to somewhere that's not necessarily going to keep them within the industry. Then you just say, well, they're not the right people for the course, because what we're looking for is the future of our industry. And also, you know, I probably wouldn't have qualified for my Caines Academy, to be honest. When I was 16, I was pretty difficult, you know, 15. So not all of our kids are perfect students. And actually, it's those ones that got a little bit of fire in them that actually go on and do quite well often. So look, you know, they're never the finished item at 16. They're just the people that, you know, you can mold and direct into becoming good advocates. And of course, it is all about leading figures, you know, reaching back and inspiring the next generation.
Thank you.
Do we have one more question at all? Anyone for another question before we? Well, go on then.
Sorry,
Annalise.
I know that you mentioned it actually, that Rick Stein has closed a few outlets actually as a result of the pandemic. You've absolutely gone the other way, completely bucked the trend. I mean, how? It's just, you know, it's you know, you were opening, I'm like, Mickey's, you opened that, you know, right in the middle of all the pandemic.
Yeah,
which
I
is
the question there was why?
Brilliant.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's you know, perhaps if I'd known the challenges that we'd faced this year, I wouldn't have been so buoyed up. Well, I mean, the answer to that is, look, you know, Rick's closure of a couple of restaurants, I think he survived most of them, was because, you know, he like a lot of people, we didn't see this coming, and let's be honest. And like a lot of businesses in this sector, you know, we plan our cash flow around, you know, a few quiet losses. You know, October is a good month. If you get a really late summer, it could be a really good month. But November, early December can be loss leaders, as can January, February, and March, depending on where Easter falls. But, you know, Easter onwards, it's very much the season. So a lot of people's cash flows are always going to be stressed at that point. And Rick just got caught as a business. They took a massive loan from Barclays. I think it was £6 or £7 million. Didn't really spend it on anything other than improving the brand and centralizing stuff. And all of a sudden, that was a big hole for them to have to fill. So on the other hand, I saw that with our investors, we saw opportunities. I'd already raised the money for Mickey's Beach, and that was going to open ideally in 2020, but obviously that was put back. So Mickey's was always going to open. So, and despite the fact that we had employed some staff, we were able to delay that opening, and that was fine. We did burn some cash, having said that, but there was enough in the money. We oversubscribed in our raise, and we managed to keep our numbers well controlled in terms of the build and fit out. So there was no surprises there. And then of course, sometimes opportunity knocks at the door of the willing, but it takes the willing to open it, and then, you know, and let in the opportunity. So in that regard, once we bought the Cove, obviously we did that in not knowing about the pandemic. The same person, the vendor that sold us that, said about Rick Stein's old restaurant, and it was a turnkey. And what that means is that you go to the restaurant and you walk in, and it's a restaurant that closed, and everything in it was all up for sale. And I said, well, what's staying and what's going? And he said, well, everything's here. And given the price that we paid for it, the opportunity was almost too good to not do it. And I always say, I'm never going to do another restaurant, but first I'll always look at it and I'll say, well, perhaps, and then, you know, and then if there's a viable opportunity to do it, then we will. I mean, you know, we're not out of this year yet, but hopefully it would be proved to be the right decision. We're very brave, and we do have good investors, and I have good backers. but also I run a really good business focused on numbers, and that focus allows us to be able to make, you know, quick and easy decisions. But we're also able to now work with some scales of economy and centralize things like some of the production for kitchen and assist some of those businesses. So it felt the right thing to do. You know, if you've got centralized accounts, then obviously the accounts that are doing 3, they're doing 4, doesn't really make much difference, but the cost, you know, is a benefit to those individual businesses. So there's a couple of reasons why I thought it was a good idea. Now I think, you know, we've weathered the storm. We've got to get the right people in our business and recruit the right people. You know, and we're starting to see some success in that, certainly in the harbour side. The Cove is still a bit difficult for us, you know, but Mickey's is going really well. They're all operating on 5 days weeks, but yeah, we're starting to immerse. We're getting some good results and come out of the other side. You know, I think, you know, most businesses need 3 years to settle, and we probably had to consolidate all of that reality of a new opening in a very short time. And it's been a very bumpy road, but we're still here. And ultimately, you know, as I say, you know, there are always winners and losers in a crisis, and you've got to be brave, but also you've got to be good at what you do, but also be good at your numbers. At the end of the day, a lot of businesses that fail because they're not really on top of their cash flow, they're not really on top of their numbers, and they can't react to the market changes fast enough. And even if that means putting the prices up, that is a reality. A lot of people still want to compete on price, and I think that's rather than quality, and I think that's the problem. And if those people go in the next 10 months, a year, then that's not a bad thing for the industry either. There's a lot of rubbish out there that needs to be got rid of, and one of the things that has been exposed in the last you know 16 to 18 months is people charge a lot and offer frankly not very much for it, and have profited massively on this word called staycation. And I think that some of it is really been detrimental to the image of the industry.
Thank you very much, and thank you for your questions. It is 11 o'clock, so I'd like to kind of wrap it up there if we can. Really big, huge thank you to Michael. Really appreciate your time today, and it's been absolutely wonderful, really, really interesting. So thank you ever so much.
Pleasure.
Also, a big thank you to Jason and Adam from Bridleton and Taunton College for your sponsorship today. Thank you ever so much. Really appreciate it as well. I'll be short if I didn't mention our next event. So our next food and drink sector focus is on the 20th of January. Please do join us if you can for that one. And our next networking event is online, and it's our Let's Networking event, and that is on the 9th of November. So it'd be great to see you along at that one if you can. We will be sharing contact details today for everyone that's been here. If you don't want your details shared, please just drop Sally a quick email to let her know that you don't want it shared. But once again, thank you ever so much, and hopefully we'll see you again soon. Thank you.
Thank you guys.
Thank you very much.
Lovely to see you all. Cheers. Thank you.
Thanks, Michael. Bye-bye.
Thank you.